Share. Share with me your day. Exude the latest versions of your human exertions through the click of a cursor. We murder the curse of the distance between us. Serve as further the purpose of real love. Your face sits behind Skype's open window, and between digital frames you look like my megapixelated Mona Lisa. Speak of the isolated evils you experience in the chasms of time before we next decide to synthetically meet up. The system is working fine, but we need to dump the junk folders of artificial small talk so our memory is freed up. Please, honey, speak up. I want to hear the composition of the real world, your side of the screen. Beam to me your smile through Ethernet and dispel the looming threats of Trojan effects caused when mere technology is synced with loneliness. I feel we are no longer mates in this matrix. I notice the hoarseness of your voice, the warbling absorbed by motherboards, overboard spat, sinister. My songstress sentiments sound like a schizophrenic solo. Delayed data delivery and corrupted connections create crooked cacophonies of half-told, stuttering stories, and it's impossible for us to transmit even a portion of our love in its former glory. You share with me not your day, but snippets, captions and widgets which are encrypted like capture, predefined recollections, tainted by limited gigabytes, polluted by dial-up browser time, a virus spreading, and I'm sick of making appointments to tell a webcam and a microphone that I want to come home, that I want to touch the world which exists beyond the four corners of your screen. I fiend for the inefficiency of a hug, so it seems our platforms are incompatible, like Flash with Apple. Plug me in again when telepresence allows me to smell your breath. Connection lost. Reese offline.
Regret is a 9 a.m. appointment with a blizzard during January's gentlest weeping. Winter clawing at your front door, begging you to rub angels into its forearms, and you never come out. The one Friday night God's in town wearing his black loafers, ready to twist and shimmy dawn into dusk, you stay in to sleep. Regret is a lost love, one unable to look past Atlantic Serengeti dangling between lips. It is the darkest hour. Beyond the apartment windows, the moon is not visible beneath fog, but you are not here. So only I get tangled in thoughts of absent deities. Any distance can cause the heart to shift rhythms, but oceans are shrinking. Land shrivels. A mile becomes the coffee table's width. It is this that aligns our paths. What is distance to he who moves with fluidity? Music is not bound to space. It travels as I have in front of silver screens, friend. All we lack is the tangible, a touch postponed but inevitable. Let us cherish this. They have called our bond artificial, as in counterfeit, but the wind sounds the same regardless of region, as we share in its lyrics from afar. I have aspired to make light of our separated togetherness. intercity ciphers, global collaboration, a new community of artists through technology's innovation.
Streaming has removed the barrier of location. We're 1,000 miles apart but still virtually adjacent. Facing screens, we can simultaneously be everywhere. This is international art, minus the airfare, plus a little more hardware, a few more sleepless nights, a translator and the will to compromise, the intellect to see the world through common eyes. Lyrics and limbs stretch and exchange through ethernets, resulting in cross-Atlantic pirouettes whilst the silhouette of a Mancunian poet arouses interest. Stay awake, because the future's just in sight.
My turn, I'm home, well, different time zone, I'm clone. There are many me's, body stretches across sea. You see?
You see?
I'm here, yet not confined to this space, these walls, mirage so small, call it pixel, go, heard the flow, here's a scenario.
Scenario.
I'm an immigrant, left the satchel of lineage back in my own land, thousands of miles away. I prayed to road signs that lead me closer to my family's bones. I haven't seen my wife's eyes in many nights until now, until digital flesh, until man has solved tomorrow's woes. I'm me again, rambling in rhythm about futuristic things, how the community will huddle in unison, cheering on its survivors, a joyous rant, how the word distance is non-existent.
Intercity ciphers, global collaboration, a new community of artists through technology's innovation.
director of La Mama. Artistic. Oh, artistic director, sorry.
Oh, great. Don, there you are. Hi. Let's, yeah, I guess we'll share this. Whoa, Don, hi. You're going to tower over us, I see. Okay, fantastic. Can we hear your mic just so we can make sure we can hear you?
Sure.
Okay,
Can you hear
great.
me?
All right, so I'm going to pass off to Paul then. Great.
Hi, everybody. Wasn't that kind of amazing? Well, I just want to start by mentioning that I first met Billy Clark in my classes at the Experimental Theater Wing at New York University, and it's just great to see what he's done here at Culture Club. I keep saying that. Culture Hub at La Mama. And welcome, Don. Great to have you here talking with us.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask either Don or Billy about how they envisioned this evening, how it started, some of the challenges you were thinking about in terms of doing this. And I know you have been doing projects at Culture Hub on Great Jones Street that aren't on this scale. So maybe a couple of things about how you got this evening and afternoon actually going.
Well, Don, I'll start. I'm going to pass it off to you, which is that Dawn started a project called Mixed Movement in New York. She's a transplant to the UK. She's from New York City. And she felt that there was a need for improvisers to have a space, almost like you'll probably be able to describe it better than me, but almost like an open mic for dancers, that they have a place to really hone their craft and improvisational skill. And so she started a project called Mixed Movement. And then she moved to Manchester, and the project went there with her. And at some point, she had a gig which conflicted with her emceeing gig for Mixed Movement. She was going to be in New York at the time, and Baba Israel, who's an old friend of mine, who's the Don's husband and the artistic director of Contact Theater, got in touch with me and said, hey, I wonder if there's a way for Don to host from New York, because he knew that we were doing stuff with this technology. And that's really how it began, in a very, a much cruder version, a more rustic version than it is today. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Don, to maybe talk a little bit about that experience and how
it was just one of
grew.
those things where Baba is a great problem solver. So I was almost like, I have to go back to New York for this gig with another project, but I don't want to miss, because it wasn't just any Mixed Movement. It was part of this Black Sound Series festival at Contact, and it was a really big deal, and I didn't want to miss it. And I was almost about to cancel my ticket, and then Baba said, why don't I reach out to Billy? And so it was just one of those practical moments that gives birth to exciting innovation and creativity. So we did the first one with me and 3 other dancers in New York, and then Baba and the musicians in Manchester, and then Yako was in New York playing music as well. And it was so exciting, and there was especially one moment between these 2 dancers that had never met, that are both good friends of mine, one in Manchester and one in New York, who actually remind me of each other. And they ended up doing a duet, and it felt like, it just felt right. They felt each other's spirits, even though they had never met. And so that was the October before last. And since then, we've done these digital duets a few times, and every time stepping it up, and the technology behind stepping it up, how we're doing it. And it's amazing as an artist to experience. And I just have to give it up for the technicians here and with you guys, because we're having all the fun and they're having all the stress.
Yes, here.
And the hard work. And so can we just give it up to all the technicians in New York and Manchester?
And so I understand this technology is just moving
Because
really
to me,
fast.
it's sort of like magic. It's just like, oh, wow, how cool is that? I can see them, and we're dancing together, and they're like doing all sorts of things that I don't understand.
Is the sense that when you perform live as a dancer musician, how much can you sense each other while someone's on the scrim and you're live, and can you sense what someone else is doing quite vividly? Maybe this is a question for everybody who's in the cast too.
Yeah, in the past, this is the first time that I think us in Manchester have sort of felt what New York we think probably usually feels, which is usually Manchester, we have the live audience, and New York really doesn't. And we usually have a scrim and have getting all that live audience feedback. And this time around, I was like, I bet this is how they feel in New York when we have the live audience. Today, it was amazing and inspiring, but it was harder because we're not looking. It was harder for our end, the dancers in Manchester, to sort of see the dancers in New York, just the technological. And I'm just
Are
curious,
you on a
really,
monitor?
how
You're watching on
dancers in New York
monitors,
felt
right?
The scrim. Was this the first time you guys used the scrim?
Oh, right, because you're watching it from the scrim perspective. Yeah, I think that we have a studio where we normally work out of, which is a much smaller environment, and so we've been beaming dancers in. So it's always more difficult when you start to think of it. And our hope is that will eventually grow into an event which will have live audiences on both sides. So right now Manchester doesn't have an audience, but very conceivably they can. They're in a 300-seat house right now, so it's a very similar scale to here. And we're still very much in the process, and then we want to be able to bring the community in to have these sort of conversations and bridge the two audiences together ultimately.
But I don't know if we even answered your question.
Not well.
There's moments. I think today I definitely, there's moments that you feel that connection with that dancer, and then there's moments where you're like, wait, can I totally see what they're doing? Oh, hopefully they can see me. And then you notice they've done something that you just did, and they're like, oh, they saw me. And then you get excited that way. So it's continuing to play with the technology.
Well, there were very many beautiful moments, and a little bit hard to tell if they were coincidental, but I could also sense that people were really on the same page. That was lovely. Hi.
I wanted to say that when we were in the smaller studio and Manchester had the live audience, we had monitors where we could see their audience while we could also see the stage. So you really felt like you were at the show over there. And then for me, being on this side of the stage, instead of like at the studio, I'm right in front of the screen. So it's like if you feel like you're right there on the stage, whereas here it's a cool mix because you're interacting with the people on the screen as well as trying to see the people behind, and it's kind of, and then the projections were really cool. I really like that. That was a new one for me to see the projected people with the artwork going around it. I just thought it was a cool, multifaceted digital explosion. So thank you guys. It was great.
I wonder if any of you could just describe a little bit about what's going on with the technology. We've talked a bit about the experience of watching it, but you've got 2 live feeds, you've got monitors, you've got cameras, you've got technicians, you have a visual artist here, you have the issues of the time lag, which is getting smaller and smaller. I wonder if you could go into a little bit about the technology of what actually happened and how it works.
Basically, it's the device that allows this to happen is called a codec, and so we're all familiar with Skype, and Skype works using a codec. It's just an algorithm which compresses the video and makes it small enough to send through the internet. We use hardware codecs which allow us to do that in HD, and then we have more inputs and outputs, so we have more flexibility about how we can move things around. There is latency. There's milliseconds of latency between the sites, and that's amplified. If you get an echo, it has to travel 2 directions. So sometimes, right now, they were experiencing some audio echo on their side, which makes it very difficult. We have done collaborations, and in fact, Neil, the sitarist that was there, has been a part of collaboration with other artists at Contact where they've actually played music, rhythmic music together, but it's challenging. You wouldn't be able to play classical music together, for example. But open-minded musicians can work around it. Yeah, we have also the ability to do obviously mixing, so we can have multiple cameras and perspectives which we can send. And then Josh, who was doing the visuals. There he is, right there with his daughter. Josh is amazing, and he's built this his instrument. It's a visual instrument called SuperDraw, which he built and designed and programmed himself. Yeah, and that we threw into the mix for the first time. I think we have a question. Yeah. So they're asking. Actually, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, I was asking if I noticed that the animator was using a Wacom tablet, but it was looked like his signal was pumped through a MIDI device and a projector on the floor. I didn't know what it was, so if you could just give some.
Sure. Hi. So my name is Josh, and so yeah, I'm using a Wacom tablet or Wacom tablet. I never know how to say it. And I'm drawing into it, and then I'm using MIDI controllers. It's all hooked into a computer, and I'm using a MIDI controller to actually basically change what the computer is doing to my line as I'm drawing. And all that is hooked up to a projector right over here. And it's also hooked through the system, so it's being sent in various ways to Manchester, as well as being able to being projected on the floor and doing all sorts of technical wizardry from these guys. Yeah, yeah, manually, exactly. So I'm hearing the music and reacting to it and changing what I'm doing based on what I'm hearing. Yeah, and that was my goal to make an instrument that way. So.
Was there also motion capture stuff happening or other technologies?
Yeah, Jesse up there, who is from Culture Hub, and then Lindsay back here from Culture Hub. So there's a lot of a lot of different layers going, and then Jay on cameras back there. Jay on camera. So Jesse designed some interactive projections, and our goal was to sort of use this as an experiment to try to take motion data from the remote side and have it be interactive with projections on our side. So when you saw those 4 squares on the floor, the motion was actually being tracked from the remote side. That's all happening here locally in our space. We're taking their video feed and using that for motion capture. Jesse, you can. He's like, kind of. You could catch him after. He can tell you more specifically. But and then also in the final jam session, you saw some projections on the floor, and those were designed animations designed by our graphic designer, Culture Hub's graphic designer, Grant Gregory, that then went through a processor called VPT, which is a VJ basic, and it does a bunch of different. It's a VJ tool, and yeah, and those were interactive to the movement of. Were those also for the dancers here that time? Oh, you mixed it up. So he was mixing it up. So it was capture. We have a camera up in the air, which is a sensor, which is capturing the movement inside of our space. It's up there in the grid, and then also capturing their movement to trigger those projections.
All of this sounds just tremendously expensive, and you're telling me that the cost of all this stuff is declining exponentially every year, and that something that would have cost $100,000 5 years ago is now $5,000 or something like that. What are some of the breakthroughs, or what are some of the things that are getting so cheap and so exciting in terms of this technology?
We know it's when we started working with Manchester, they actually didn't have the codec, and so the thing that's happening is that their software solutions and the computing power is getting stronger. So we were able to actually use it was a $100 piece of software. It cost $100 to license, and that's how we started this collaboration with Contact. And through the exciting work and some of the innovations like projecting onto gauze, which was Baba's idea, we started to realize the power of not us looking into their space, but that we're actually inhabiting the same space. And And so now they have all of the equipment. They were funded by the Arts Council. Is that correct, Don? The yeah.
I'm eyeing the contact staff to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So to basically so now they have all of the equipment. But the part of what Culture Hub is trying to do is we're really trying to follow in the footsteps of Ellen Stewart, the founder of LAMMA, and she built an immense analog network around the world. She created an amazing network of artists. And what we want to do is use these technologies to continue that, continue linking artists and reaching out to artists around the world. And there are some very extremely low cost ways to do that, and that's part of our mission. So we've in the course of this year, we've been working with Cartagena. We've worked with Guatemala City. We've worked with Spoleto, Italy, with some hip hop musicians there. And all of this we've been doing with very cheap software solutions coupled with computers. So it's getting cheaper, it's getting mobile, it's on mobile devices, there are apps. And I think it's just going to continue, the prices are going to continue to go down. But the thing that's really made all of this possible, because the ideas are not new, Amju Pike was doing this in the 80s, and many people have been working with network performance, is the cost of the internet and the speed of the internet. So in the time that we started in 2008 till now, the price of our internet connection has gone down by half, and the speed has gone up by 4 times for that. And that means that we can spend time in this environment exploring as artists what it means to be in this environment. And that wasn't really possible before. You had to conceptualize something that was very extremely, it was extremely costly, and then you just had to execute it and see what happened. But now we can really spend time there.
I could say for myself that I was wondering how it would all read, but what I felt was that it was like a very warm experience, very human and intimate, like having a conversation with a good friend or something, and that was really neat to see. I wondered, just to back up a bit, could you just briefly talk about Contact Theater and what you folks do in Manchester and who you are, and then Billy, just briefly talk about Culture Hub, and then we'd love to take a couple of questions from you folks out in the audience before we go have a glass of wine at the reception.
Sure. Well, Contact, and officially it's Contact, even unofficially everybody still calls it Contact Theater. It's actually just Contact. It's an amazing venue that is interdisciplinary. It's a theater venue. There's music, visual art, dance, poetry, a lot of things happen here, and it's really dedicated to supporting young people. And by young people, the remit is 13 to 30, but obviously people of all ages come and perform and support here. It's a really amazing space, about, 11 or so years old, this incarnation of Contact. 99, when the building was rebuilt after a fire. And it's really looking at new and emerging and cutting edge work. And it's no place, Baba and I first came here. He first came here as a performer from New York, and in 2005, and came over yearly as a performer. And we fell in love with the place. Like, there's no other place in the world where you get this commitment to youth and cutting edge amazing theater, and it's a warm building where people feel like they can hang out here. There's a lounge, there's a bar, there's amazing food. It's just an incredible place. And I say this, I'm not actually staff of Contact. I'm just a, Contact cheerleader and perform here a lot. But it's just an incredible space that does a lot for Manchester and the larger community in the UK. And what am I'm looking at I'm looking at our Lindsay and Alex going, what else am I leaving out here? Oh, yes. Thank you, Lindsay. We have a Lindsay over here as well, lovely technician. So one of the really exciting things for us, and I know we're going to be doing some more telepresence in it, is Contacting the World, which is a biannual International Youth Theater Festival. It's happening this July here, and where we bring theater companies from all over the world, youth theater companies, and they have a 9-month process where they're twinned with another company from another part of the world, and they create a theater piece, and then they come for a week to Manchester to Contact, and they perform it together. So, and I know that Baba's really keen this year. They've been using a lot more telepresence in those collaborations. So really excited to find out. I think this summer all of the shows are going to be streamed. Yes? Yes. So really check out contactmcr.com in July during Contacting the World, because I think each night all the performances from the youth theater companies are going to be streamed. There's a company from Thailand. We've got Nigeria, a couple companies from the UK, Trinidad. So yeah, Contact is an amazing, amazing place, one of a kind in the world, really.
That's great. How about Culture Hub?
Well, you know, I don't know what to say. We're going to be collaborating with them in the fall on a network festival called Time Wave, and we hope that we just continue to do this kind of work, that we continue to reach out and work in this digital way with people all over the world, and that's going to be something that's happening, going to be happening here at LAMMA more frequently, and we hope to develop an audience for that, and we thank you very much for coming out to support us.
Thanks. Any questions from the audience? Anything you were wondering about? Yeah. Right. So the question is about the live streaming, and is it a one-off thing, and is there a way to preserve the form and maybe beam it worldwide, either now or in the future?
We just did that, and that's what Lindsay was doing up there. She was streaming it in HD, and also for SD for people that don't have the bandwidth to consume that, and that's recorded. And it's preserved online and can be watched later. We are also, I don't know if we did today, that's a question for Jesse, but most of our work, we also document our live editing in HD. We've also documented on board our cameras. We have 2 in the back that we're both recording. So we think that preserving live events and performances is really important, and that we are trying to do it in a way that simultaneously is suitable for all of those different mediums, because the stream really requires more close-up generally, and the documentation requires a variety of shots. So we really are trying to find ways to do that simultaneously and to preserve the work.
Other questions? Couple more? Yes, up there. Yeah, so the question is about working in a theater, how to lessen issues like overlap and time delay and other technical issues.
I mean, the delay it's really based on the hardware and then the internet connection of the day. So you get what's called packet loss. You saw some of that, that jitter. And that really, the thing about the internet is that no matter how good the technologies get, the internet infrastructure around the world is not very good. And it's also designed to make money, not to be effective. So an example of that is that we had a workshop scheduled to work with Dawn. I'd like to think of where we're at right now as really the Wild West. And the whole internet for the entire lower Manhattan went out. Well, if that happened to us today, and it's happened to us before, not in fortunately for us, not in such a high stress moment, but you're done. If you're doing network performance, you don't have an internet connection, stable internet connection, you can't do it. And so there's always that just ungodly fear we carry with us every day. And in fact, the moment that this show started, our call dropped out, and I about lost it. But they came back. They came back, and Dawn appeared, and it was fine. That's why Yako had such a long intro. So there's always that possibility. In terms of the projection, I think it's just a matter of working with it. We had the great fortune of working with John Justrin, who's sitting in the back. He's like looking for himself, and Jesse did as well. And so we learned a lot from that process and how to sort of scale things for this environment. In his show, he had 7 cameras, and it had 4 20-foot wide by 12-foot tall projections that sort of pivoted and moved in the space here. So yeah, it's very reconfigurable, this environment, and there's a lot of different things that you can do to it. I think that one of the things that we want to do is to somehow break that feeling of two-dimensionality, and I think there are several ways to address that. I think this does the gauze does to a certain extent. When they go upstage, it kind of feels that they are on our floor, but there's other ways to do that too, and we hope to continue working with that.
One more question? Yeah. Okay, so it was a comment about how some of you may not know that Culture Hub has an office on 47 Great Jones Street as a smaller studio, so the scale of the projects reads differently. It's a smaller space, and at times could seem perhaps more intimate. My experience of today was I was pleasantly surprised how intimate it felt in this large space at the Ellen Stewart Theater. And the question also was what was the preparation, the performance preparation for today's event?
In terms of the intimacy, yeah, I think that's something that we're still very much at the very tip of the iceberg in terms of what it means to work in this abstracted environment that potentially has audiences, live audiences experiencing live content mixed with whatever we want to call this, virtual or digital content. It's hard to wrap our mind around that space, and I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg of that, and how we can bring the audience in. Like right now, we're working a very proscenium way, but we wouldn't necessarily have to do that. This is a one-time event inside of a festival. It could be two-sided. It could be the audience is inside of a box with projections all around it. I mean, there's numerous ways that are really just theatrics that are the same. I think for any mediated image that you would use in the theater to give it more strength or potency, I think. And then in terms, what was the second part of the question? Oh, the preparation. Honestly, I left it up to the dancers. I would say that we created a score which was very much born out of Dawn's structure. We added a few different disciplinary elements, and it was very structured in terms of what was happening when. And we got to have one walkthrough, thank the Lord, before we opened, and which made it all possible. But otherwise, it was just a matter of I knew a lot of the performers, and I knew that they would be complimentary. Some new people came in, but they didn't really have a lot of. There was not a theme, or it was really left to them.
Yeah, and I think it was really, between Billy and the folks on that side connecting with performers, and then myself sort of finding the performers on this side. Of course, Billy requested to work with Blue again, and then Baba finding the musicians, just us, all the curators, finding awesome performers that we knew, even if they hadn't met each other before, they were going to click. They had some things to share with each other. So I think that was a lot of the preparation. Then obviously, like Billy said, the day of, we did one quick run through and had the structure in our brains, like, okay, we're just going to do this.
Wow, it sure looked like more than that. Don Crandall in Manchester, Billy here in New York. I'm Paul Langland. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks to everybody in the show yet again. Good afternoon.